Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my Kriss Vector.
Gonna do that. Gonna start applying program. Can't say program, but might end up doing this.
Fast forward this part. So this is a cool gun, right? Probably one of the most interesting guns that you've seen, one of the most unique for sure, and probably one of the most futuristic looking guns. I'll kind of get in here pretty close so you can see the details. I don't have a format for this video like I kind of never do for my videos, but I'm going to kind of give a brief rundown of the gun, how it works, the intention, some of the internals, how they function, for those of you that are kind of unfamiliar with the Kriss. And mine is a pretty cool, pretty unique setup that I kind of did a lot of research, tried a lot of trial and error to get something dialed in a way that I wanted to use it. So part of this thing, part of the reason I got this gun was my friend Philip. You guys probably know Philip. He's mentioned, sometimes shows up on the channel here. He's one of my main shooting buddies. He picked up a Scorpion, and I was like, oh, pistol caliber carbine, that's cool, that's cool. And for a long time, I had seen this, let me take these are the, Verdict sent out a bunch of gloves of theirs for me to try. Really nice if you feel like checking them out. I do have a coupon code over there at Verdicts as well. LLOD, those 4 letters will save you 25% off of everything. Anyway, this bag has been out for a while. This is the Commuter Sling. This is one of the coolest bags. This isn't a review on the bag. I'll do a review on the bag later because people have been asking about it. But basically I saw this bag and I was like, man, that bag would be awesome if it was paired with a small little folder, which I didn't have at the time. I didn't have any folders. I had a bunch of ARs and I had a bunch of pistols and I had nothing that kind of bridged the gap, so to speak. So I started looking into it. Like I said, Philip got a Scorpion and I was kind of, it didn't do much for me. I always kind of thought the Vector was cool, but I didn't know much about it. And I was like, what better way to learn about it than buy one? So I did some research because I knew that I wanted to get a folding stock on this thing. Okay, so the folder portion of this gun. This video is probably going to be pretty long because there's a lot going on this gun that's kind of not standard. This, how you see it now, you can't just buy. You can't just pick this up. So there's some modifications that have to be made. I'll try and breeze through them, though. You know, this isn't a video about the modifications entirely, like any specific one. It's kind of an overarching video that shows them all. In any case, in order to get it folded up like this compact package, which is about, I think, 16 point something inches from this to this, so a relatively small package when compared to more recently I built a tiny AR pistol. This kind of got me into the pistol carbine game. So this is a very similar size to a very small folding AR. I'll do a whole video on that later. But anyways, to get this guy into the folding position like this, which is cool because you can fire it entirely with this thing folded up if you want to, though obviously it's gonna handle a lot better with this thing folded out. Anyway, in 2017, mid 2017, I think, they quit making this version of the Kriss. Now, the current versions do not have this folding part built in. It's just like a little stub back here that you can't put a folding stock or brace on, unfortunately. So if you're gonna buy one of these, make sure you try and find the generation that has this if you wanna make it, if you wanna turn it into a folder. I didn't have the foresight to kind of record or take pictures of this thing before I put this on. So before I put it on, there was this little stub here. What you then had to do is drill out the pin in order to get the little nub off. Then you had to buy an actual Kriss Vector stock, which is this, which has a stock on it. Don't put that on, because if you put that full stock onto your pistol, this is a pistol, you're breaking the law, you're making an illegal SBR. So you buy the stock, you remove the stock portion of it, you can cut this little, there's a little support here that I cut off. You buy an adapter, this little adapter here actually fits into the stock and allows you to put a Gearhead Works tailhook Mod 1 attached to this. So then you convert your stock into a pistol brace. This is really like a cheek rest is what it'll be called then. And then at that point, you can put it onto the gun because this is no longer a stock. Yes, silly, I know, but that is how you convert your Kriss Vector pistol pre-mid 2017 into a sweet folding pistol. So awesome in this configuration. This is really, for me, kind of where I find the awesome, cool factor of this gun is in the ability to fold it. That's just a personal thing. It's a cool gun regardless. So now we'll talk a little bit about the gun, the Kriss Vector. So it looks wild, right? So how this works is, there are a few reasons I got this. As you probably saw in the little opener clip, it uses Glock mags. This one I got in 9mm because all my Glocks are 9mm and I like consistency. I like to be able to, I like the idea of being able to shoot this, I run dry. I can actually take my mag from my carry gun, slam it in here, and fill this puppy back up. So that's a really cool feature. It'll accept Glock 17 mags, so 17 round mags and up. It won't accept a Glock 19 15 round mag. So anyways, they make this in 9mm that takes Glock mags, obviously. They also make it in 10mm, which might kind of make a little more sense for the platform if you didn't care about kind of being able to swap it with your own personal carry mags. 10mm obviously packs the most punch of, I think, the available pistol caliber cartridges for this gun, and you can also get in 45. So yeah, this is an empty mag. We'll load it in. This is a 33 round mag. Goes in there like that. And you'll see is this kind of weird, huh? The shape of it. What's this part? What's this big chunk here? And the recoil system, basically, this is the extractor and stuff in here. The recoil assembly, that's the name of it, the vector, kind of vectors the force downward. They created this because they really wanted a way to control full auto 45, full auto 10mm. So for a small package like this, if you're trying to control 10mm or 45, it's gonna go, and the cyclic rate of this is crazy. It shoots very, very fast in full auto. I've shot these in full auto and they'll kind of blow you away. Anyways, to help mitigate that recoil and that muzzle rise, the bolt actually comes down at an angle and goes down into this portion. So it's going ejects the empty casing out. This thing comes down here and then loads the next round. So as it's coming down, it's kind of counteracting your muzzle rise with this lower, recoil, I guess. Shooting it's a little bit interesting. In 9mm, very controllable. 10mm also very controllable. And that obviously translates to being one of the most controllable full autos as well. So having said all of that, I think this gun really kind of shines or excels in the larger caliber 10mm 45 full autos. In 9mm, this whole system doesn't provide as much of an advantage because the recoil is already light in something like this. So in 9mm, I'm not really tapping into the true power or design of this gun, I guess, but it's still a fun gun. It's still a really cool gun. All that to say, there's just kind of a lot going on here to create a very low recoil thing. Also, you'll notice here that the bore axis is low. It's all the way down here, and the grip is high. So if you draw this line here from where your grip is, you're actually above the bore. So you're able to get a really high purchase, therefore also making the recoil much more kind of linear into your grip, rather than if you're gripping it down here, you would want to make it rise a lot more. So the whole design of this gun is really to mitigate recoil, which again, doesn't matter as much for a 9mm as much as it would for like a 10mm. But that brings us into kind of some weird quirkiness of the gun. We have such a low barrel down here that the height over bore of your optic is very high, which means that going out to range, you're going to be sighted in, and the dot's going to be, your bolt's going to be hitting low until you reach, you know, however far you want to sight it in, say 25 yards, and then it's going to be on, and then your bullet's going to be significantly higher for a while until it kind of starts dropping down again, and then you'll kind of have your second distance where it hits. I didn't test a whole lot of that out, so I can't really give you numbers about like sighting it in at 25 will again be accurate at 100 yards or something like that. I don't really know those numbers. I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but a lot of that depends on how high you mount your optic. So I messed around with a lot of stuff on this gun, a lot of light mounts and a lot of optic mounts. I wanted to get this, initially I wanted to get this low, so I had a American Defense mount, quick detach mount, which is an awesome mount for these, and I had it as low as possible. And then you kind of have some weirdness back here with this, the shape of this. So you're in here, and you either got to lean forward a little bit, which is the natural position to get your thing up here, but if you're kind of a more position like this, then your cheek's kind of falling down into this portion, and you kind of have to fall down into that portion if you want to use a very low mount in order to line it up. This height of mount lines up much better with the natural position of your cheek weld. So if you want to use the cheek weld that's kind of up high here, you're gonna kind of have to mount this up higher. Additionally, if you're gonna want to run a light on your gun, 12 o'clock is really the position that I found works best for this gun. So if you're gonna use a light at 12 o'clock, then you're gonna want an optic that's gonna be able to clear your light, which for the most part is going to be a lower 1/3 co-witness. So in the optic department, what I went for is this Leupold Delta Point Pro. So this is a very small optic. Some people put them on pistols, some people put them on rifles. I just thought for a gun like this that I'm going to toss in a backpack, that I want to be small and nimble and not take up much space, these kind of micro dots made a lot of sense. I hadn't tried out the Delta Point Pro. I've been running, you know, RMRs on everything forever. I've tried out some Vortex stuff and some Burris stuff. I've reviewed quite a few little red dots on my channel, but I always kind of wanted to try one of these. Leupold, fortunately, was kind enough to send one out actually to Mad Custom. So Leupold does their thing called the Custom Shop. You guys probably first saw it on my channel anyway. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it elsewhere, but on my channel, the first time you saw it was with this other AR build that I have a full video on, where I put a Leupold LCO that I got custom shopped to match exactly to my multicam black AR. So this was my first kind of dealing with Leupold and custom shop. They have a relationship with my favorite Cerakoter's Mad Custom, where Mad Custom coats their optics. The optics are then sent back to Leupold, and Leupold does all their little laser etching and all that cool stuff after it's coated. So you're gonna have, this is gonna be the most awesome way to get an optic kind of color match. So this is color matched to the Vector. Mad reached out to Kriss, got the actual color code, made up the actual same exact OD to match this guy. So that's, you know, a nice little cool touch. Obviously you don't need that, but if you want to go full baller mode, that's what you might want to do. Anyways, the Delta Point Pro made sense for this build because I wanted to keep it small. So the thing is, on this gun, I'll try not to flag myself here, I'll put it on my shoulder. This window on the Delta Point Pro is significantly larger than like an RMR, but the whole package is significantly smaller than something like an MRO or the LCO, things like that. So it's kind of in between, closer to an RMR, but kind of in between an RMR and something bigger like the LCO or an aim point or something like that. So it's kind of a nice balance. These are a little bit big for a pistol, but some people run them on pistols, but really, really beautiful for this setup. I hadn't run these micro dots on like a carbine before, and I was worried that maybe the window would be too small or it'd be too hard to pick up the dot, especially on a platform that I'm not as familiar with as the AR, but it's amazing. I have no problem finding the dot. I have no problem lining it up in the window. So this thing has been great for me. Love it. Can definitely highly recommend it for use on a Vector or kind of a smaller build like that. So then we were talking about lights. So 12 o'clock. So there's a couple things. You can add rail extensions here. You can add a rail extension also on the other side here. You can kind of get a whole cage rail system if you're into that, but I wasn't because I have a screw-on Osprey that I'll put on here in a second. So the light, I played around with a lot of stuff, a lot of different lights. I bought the rail to put over here, and nothing really worked well. So a lot of times at 12 o'clock, I'll run an X300 or something like that, and they're good. But the problem is, I run X300s. This isn't how I'm setting up. I just had this on the table. So I run X300s sometimes on guns where I can get the light out in front of my grip. So that way, pushing forward is the activation of the X300s. So it makes sense at 12 o'clock if I can get it in front of where my grip would land so it can line up to something like this. For that, the X300 makes sense. Unfortunately, on the Vector, there's not much real estate. So when I'm holding the gun like this, my thumb would be out here. So the X300, I have to reach back and activate it in some weird way. This, which is the Inforce, I can just reach over the top and grab the gun like this basically. So I can grab it, and this is the least awkward way that I've found to mount and activate a light that works well. Also, you get it at 12 o'clock, which will cast the best shadow if you're running something like an Osprey. Hang on a second, let me screw that suppressor on. So here it is with the Osprey attached. You'll notice that I have the Osprey technically upside down, but I think that's kind of how it looks and works best. You can obviously run in any orientation that you want, but I think overall having it this way with the bulk of the can up here in this wasted space kind of makes sense. So then you have the light here at 12 o'clock, and you're still able to illuminate what's out in front of you with your shadow being down low. So that's what I like about lights at 12 o'clock, is it casts the best shadow off of a suppressor or muzzle device. So this will direct thread on, has the same thread pitch, 1/2 by 28, I believe, as, you know, kind of most of your standard 9mm pistols. However, since this doesn't have the barrel flipping up and down and stuff, you do not want to run this with the booster. So you cannot seamlessly transfer this to your pistol without damaging it on one or the other. So if you're going to run a suppressor on the Vector or any 9mm pistol caliber carbine that will have a booster on it when you're running it on a pistol, you don't want to run it with a booster on the gun. So that's just something to note. So then we have a gun like this, which kind of brings us to another reason that I thought the Vector was always cool, was because I already owned this can. This can, which practically seems like it was made for the Vector. Sorry, I should have like a white background for videos like this. But anyways, this is the setup, the really cool setup where it's kind of the head turner at the range or whatever when you have this guy. So I realize I'm looking at the screen like the whole time because I want to make sure this thing's in frame. So hopefully that's not bugging you too much. Okay, so that's that. That's this setup. And then up top here I have some Magpul Pro backup irons. And right now, currently, my jam is I'm running everything, all my guns that I can use things on with QD mounts. So in order to get QD mounts that kind of work practically, you do have a QD mount back here on the tail hook, but with the folding with the sling attached is just kind of weird. So what I did was install this, which is cool because it allows you to utilize the rail space the best. It did have this other like hook over here that I cut off. I don't know that I would recommend this. This thing is kind of, I don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of flimsy. It's hard to tell, but when I have a sling on here, if I was really going to be using and abusing the sling and really torquing on it, I honestly don't know how well this would hold up. It's a cool design though, and I'll link to it because I am using it. It's been working out well for me. But if this was a hard use gun that I was running every weekend and I was like putting a lot of force onto the sling, I don't know. On the other hand, we have this one, which I'm using up front, which is the Haley Strategic. This thing is bomb proof. I really like this because it's angled up, so it allows your sling to kind of rest in a more natural position. Anyway, so that's what I have set up on the rails, and that's, oh, I guess this too. So this is the little Magpul hand stop kit. I prefer this because you can grip the Vector like this if you want to. That's kind of like, there's kind of some ridges here, but the problem is if you grip it like this, you kind of want to grip it like this, which means that your hands are falling right here, which is no good because this is the bolt hold open, the bolt catch and the bolt release. So depending on if you're squeezing the front or the back, you're either going to be locking your bolt back every round, which you don't want to do, or you're going to be forcing it in a way that won't allow your bolt to lock back on the last round. Then you got to rack it and chamber it again. So this is kind of weird, kind of sloppy. I don't like it. And also what happens is this is the mag release, which is really light. It's a really light mag release. So you have your hand up here, and if you're squeezing it or you're doing something, you can accidentally drop the mag, which obviously is no good. You're gonna run into some issues as well if you're left-handed because your hands are gonna be all up on this stuff as well, depending on where you put it. What I opted to do, well, there I go, I just accidentally released the mag. What I opted to do was install these up here, and I use this to kind of rest my fingers in, so that way I'm not going in front of it into the muzzle. And that allows me to get up high like this, which is kind of a more AR style, and I kind of rest my thumb on the charging handle here, and that allows my hand to kind of get up and out of the way of these controls a little bit. So I kind of have this, it's hard to show, but I kind of have this gap here where I'm not messing with any of the controls. So that's how I set it up. That's how I rock this thing. That's how I kind of get away from the controls. This is kind of just like a jumbled up mess of stuff here. That's just, this is where your hand's sitting, and it's just, I don't know. I wouldn't know how to do it better necessarily without putting some thought into it, but it's just kind of a mess. What you have here also is your charging handle. So the charging handle I do like overall. So it sits nice and flush. It's non-reciprocating, so you're not having to worry about it like flinging back like on a scar or something. And it has this little ledge here so you can get behind it. Pulling that out like this much right here before actually ever pulling it back allows you to do a chamber check. It pulls this back just enough for you to kind of do a pseudo press check to check if you're chambered or not. So it's kind of a cool feature. And then obviously you pull it all the way, and that's how you chamber the next round. What's cool is this lines up so you can just pull it back. Again, this is kind of hard to show, I guess. How am I gonna show this? But yeah, it's impossible. But you pull it back and it allows your finger to access, or your thumb or something to access this. So now you can pull it back and lock the bolt open. So now the bolt is locked open, and then you can release it. So it's positioned nicely where you can do that with one hand. You don't have to like pull it back and reach around with your other hand or do some kind of weird motion to lock the bolt back if you need to. It's just right here, press in, locked back. Beautiful. The other thing I found about this grip is if you're kind of in tune with it, when you need to do a reload, instead of like coming all the way down and accessing it with your thumb or something, you can kind of push inwards with your hand. So once you're comfortable running this gun, to do a reload, you can do it really quick without even moving, just, and that drops it. That does mean you're a little bit more prone to accidental mag drops, but just thought I would mention it. Man, this video is going on and on and on. I'm thinking about trying to re-record it faster, but I've been kind of breezing through this stuff. It's just I want to be detailed because there's a lot going on in this gun that I want you to know about. The trigger is upgraded from the original. The original Vectors, the first gen, I guess, kind of had some issues. The triggers were pretty crappy. They kind of had some reliability issues. They fixed all of that as far as I know. I've had no malfunctions, no issues. This is run, I've only used OEM Glock mags and P mags, but those have all run fine. haven't had any malfunctions, have run hollow points, 115 grains, 147 grains, 124 grains, all kinds of manufacturers through this without a hiccup. That's what's nice about getting a gun like this that kind of has all of its things worked out, is it's gonna run pretty well. Runs well suppressed, runs well unsuppressed. You don't have anything back here, really ports and stuff, so you're not dealing with much gas blowback to the face if you are running suppressed. So overall, it's a really good setup. The trigger is decent, not the most amazing trigger, but the face is very comfortable, feels good, and you know, it works all right. The safety is ambidextrous, so you can manipulate it from either side if you want, like that. But it's kind of, there's no detents. There's like maybe a little bit of a detent, but I would love to feel more positive engagement one way or the other. Right now it's just kind of like slides into fire or slides into safe. Another cool feature is it does use Magpul grip cores, so if you want to put a CR123 or an oil bottle or whatever in there, it's a nice use of space here, so nice kind of like value add for me. The other thing I guess is that this hand is going to be very high because like I mentioned earlier, it's up very high versus like an AR or something like that. So that when shooting it, just to note that your angle will be pretty cocked if you want to kind of get that grip and kind of run it, I guess, like you would an AR. Okay, you know, I'm not even gonna get into the internals or breaking it down or anything. Field stripping this is pretty easy, 4 pins, take it out. It's burly, beefy system. But yeah, the gun overall is probably, I mean, it's one of my coolest guns, if not my coolest gun. Kind of the gun that everyone kind of gravitates to, looks good in pictures, but like I've kind of gone over, has some quirks to it. It's not the lightest gun, it's not the smallest gun. This gun with no mag and no suppressor, with the setup, all the accessories on it, is 7 pounds 9 ounces. Now that's not crazy heavy, but it's also definitely not a featherweight gun. Your Scorpion Evo is gonna be quite a bit lighter than this, kind of, you know, out of the box. The other thing to note, which I didn't even really feel like talking about, but is this rail. So the rail is quite close to the body. So most of your standard Picatinny stuff is gonna work all right, but I actually had to modify this. You can see how close this is. I actually had to grind this mount to clear the polymer part of this rail. So some of your mounts, you know, like this mount and your sights and a lot of things will just work natively. Anything that kind of wraps around or has any of these kind of features that might overhang down might not fit natively. You might have to modify them or they just might not work at all. So that's another just small thing to mention about the Picatinny rails. All right, guys, I think that about wraps it up. This video is getting pretty long. I could talk all day about guns, but hopefully that gave you an idea about how kind of I have this gun set up, gave you some insight into the gun, maybe helped you figure out if it was one that you might want to pick up in the future, or maybe if you have one, kind of maybe gave you ideas on how you can get it set up to kind of be a little more practical. If you found this video helpful, informative, any of those things, hit that thumbs up button. I really appreciate it. Get subscribed to the channel if you're not. Turn on those notifications. If you have questions, you want to get more involved, I do have a Patreon you could check out if you want. All my other social media is linked down below. So if you're into anything else, check me out. All right, take care.